This is an SM Media production. And obviously, like this, the 05-06 season, I just want to touch on because you get to play in a Scotland jersey for the B team.
Yeah.
What was the memories of that? Just when did you first hear that kind of news?
I heard it. God, who were we playing? It was Jim Jeffries come up and told me. I was sitting with Boydie eating pre-match. God, it might have been Falkirk away or something we were playing. I can't quite remember. And Jim come up and he says, in the Scotland B squad. And I was sitting with Boydie. So I was like, oh, well done, Boydie. I thought he was talking to no, you? He says, me? He says, I'm in it. And he says, aye, you're in it. Walter Smith was on the phone asking about you, blah, blah, blah. He says, so you're in the squad, the two E's are in it. I was like, oh, wow, amazing. And I was like, where's the game? And they're like, Rugby Park. And I says, all right, oh, aye, that's why I'm in it then. It was amazing. It was a great experience. So myself, Gary McDonald, we got in it as well, I think, that one.
He was a player I thought was really good, Gary McDonald.
Aye, Gary McDonald was a great footballer, really good player and brilliant, absolutely brilliant off the pitch. Great laugh. Aye, brilliant boy. Aye, some boy.
But like, who took the Scotland B team? Was it who was it?
It was Walter Smith.
Was it Walter? Was it Walter that took it?
It was Walter Smith and Tommy Burns was his assistant. I don't know if there was any. There must have been another coach there as well. But Tommy Burns, Jim Stewart was a goalie coach. So I was just a great experience. So obviously Walter Smith, knew him from afar. Rangers manager, 9 in a row, all these other things. I thought, just an absolute legend of the game. And again, I was like that wee 14-year-old schoolboy again with Tommy Burns.
Were you still in awe of him at that point? Like,
I was desperate to ask him if he remembered me from then, but I was too scared.
Right.
But I didn't. I didn't ask him, and I don't know if he remembers me or not. Obviously, but it was brilliant. It was a great experience. Got to see a wee inkling of how Walter Smith works. He's club this group of players to go and play against Poland. When we were down at the Marine Highland staying, and we were training. I can't actually remember where we trained, but we trained somewhere local, and he took us and he says, right guys, I'm not going to go into too much detail. He says, right, this is a team. So I was left back. He says, this is what I want you to do. The Poland left back, so he would stand as if he was a Poland left back with the ball, just holding it.
Yeah.
This is what I want us to do. This is how I want to be defensively organised. This is what ball into middle of the park. This is how I want us to be. He says, that's all I'm going to give you. A wee bit about set pieces, and that's it. He says, the other side of the game, just go and play.
Yeah.
Go and yourself, you've got this opportunity. Go and do the best you can, kind of thing. So it was really simplistic, but helpful as well. And then we went out and played the game, and I actually thought I played a really good game. I don't think I could have played much better, if I'm being honest. And it was a lovely experience for sure.
Brilliant. And just like obviously the season after that, I just want to touch on one game you'll remember quite well, the League Cup final. You go to Hampden again, but this time it was against Hibs, 5-1 defeat. Peter Leven's been on, Colin Nash has been on as well. They've said how gutting it was for them. Like, what was it? I imagine it'd been the same for you. But just what was it of that game?
Aye. It was, and again, the first cup final I was fortunate enough to play in. Probably less aware of it. This one I was more aware of it. I was the captain for this cup final as well, so I felt that added pressure that can come with that not wanting to let ourselves down or let the fans down or anything like that. And the game just didn't go for us. We didn't start it that bad. Put Big Nishy probably didn't tell you he was marking Rob Jones for their first goal, but he wasn't marking him. So Big Rob Jones get into the head on scores and we go down 1-0. So I blame Big Nishy. Nah, I'm kidding. So that was, it's the moments of the game.
Yeah, were they just a good team?
Oh, they were a good team. There's no doubt about that. You think of the players that they had at the time that went on to even bigger things in the game.
Yeah.
Tells you that they had a very good squad.
Aye.
They're a good model of playing as well. You know, John Collins was at that point, and you know, he liked to get the ball down and pass it, and the big pitch obviously helped with that as well. And you know, we just at the right moments, we just didn't quite turn up. You know, we got to defend at times, and we didn't do that. I blame Jacko actually. I always tell Paul Di Giacomo, says, I blame you. Lewis Stevenson get man of the match. He was 14-year-old and he get man of the match in the left wing against you in Fordy. Says, how could that happen? You know, Jacko about that one. But that was a tough one because you're going into that game thinking this is a real opportunity for us to go and win something, and being part of being a young player, and we won the cup in '97 was always in my head throughout my career. That I want to feel that, I want to know what that feels like, because being in the fringes of it was brilliant, but you know, actually being on a pitch and being the reason for that happening was something I was desperate to do.
Definitely. And obviously, like, I know a player who's in here, he's finished fifth that season, but a player I just want to touch on who I imagine you'll be very fond of was Gary Locke. Like, you got a Gary Locke story?
Just another maniac. Absolutely. He was. I remember, again, we used to train in Glasgow, and his car school was him, Nishi, for the time, him, Nishi, David Fernandez, and Mehdi Tao. Mehdi Tao, what a boy he was an amazing boy. 3 months in the car with him, the language in Mehdi when he changed him, transformed him almost. Me, Mehdi couldn't say anything in English without a swear word being included in it because of that. Absolutely brilliant. And Lockie was a huge personality in the dressing room, good captain, good guy, really funny. Probably really unfortunate with the the knee issues that Lockie had. You know, it really did hinder his career, in fairness to him, but he still managed to play his bit. And just for the dressing room and everything, he was brilliant. But again, another mood man. To be fair, he used to take pleasure in driving. I remember he come in killing himself laughing at Gascue one day because he had some guy who was walking up Maryhill Road, and Lockie's went by in a big puddle and absolutely drenched the boy. He thought this was Lockie. That guy could be going to his work or anything. He thought it was a great laugh. It was full of nonsense.
Brilliant. But the 07-08 season, that was probably the season where it kind of goes downhill. Like, you finish 11th. Like, did you feel you needed a rebuild at that point? Like, or was the loss of kind of Boyd and Naismith the kind of big reason for that?
Well, that's certainly, you know, when you lose players of that quality over the course of a couple of years, you know, you've seen how many goals Boyd had scored for Killie, but up to that point, you've seen the influence that Stephen had as well, with goals and just the other stuff that he brought to the game. His assists, and you know, it might not be the assist, but he's maybe built everything up and then played it wide and crossed it for somebody else to score, you know, and that was such a huge influence. I think Fraser actually got a bad injury that season as well. He was out for a wee while. I think he maybe done his shoulder or something. And again, we lost the solidness of Big Fraz. So that was, I think Nishi was probably our top goal scorer that season. I'm not even sure if Nishi, I think I heard bits and bobs on Nishi's thing with you. He'd said himself, he never seen himself as a goal scorer. He did actually take a lot more pleasure in providing goals for people. And the rest of us never chipped in enough on that side of things as well. So invariably, that means if you're not scoring enough and you're conceding too many, then you're in bother.
I mean, you were never in like fear of relegation, obviously, because Gretna were a bit of a shambles at that point, and I think there was like 25 points of difference. But surely, though, like, it's a big mass. It's just if it's going down to, like, if you're going down to 11th to finish in 5th, like, there must be kind of question marks setting in about what's happening behind the scenes.
Aye, definitely, and that's understandable, isn't it? You know, and it's, again, we just, confidence is such a big thing for everybody, and you know, when you're getting into games, not sure if you're going to score, not sure if you're not going to concede, rather than being sure in your head, you know, we're going to keep it tight here, and we'll win this year. Somebody's going to nick a goal for us, and we'll come up the road with a victory type thing. So and that can set in, and you know, we worked hard enough. It wasn't through lack of work or effort in the training ground for the manager and the players, but probably just lacked that wee bit of quality at the right time.
Definitely. The season after though, like Jim Jeffries makes a signing in Kevin Kyle. Like he scores a lot of goals. He's the kind of goal scorer I think Kilmarnock needed at that point. Like you got a Kevin Kyle story. What was he like?
Aye, Kev was again another good character. Similar to this year, actually, we would like if you said it was black, he was claiming it was white. You know, I love the debate. The big guy, again, brought something different to the table. Best player I've ever seen, chesting the ball down. You know, for all different areas. You know, he was brilliant at it, and you know, added a good influence to the team at that point. Guys like Manuel Pascali as well. Manu come in, I don't remember when Manuel come into the club. Might have been round about then or before then.
Probably was,
you know, and Manu had a really good influence. He was again like Freddie Dindaloo, got right into their culture. And
was a good player.
Became a fan. Excellent, aye, really good player. Loved defending. You know, and yellow card count will tell you that. Loved defending, he really did. And as I say, a really good character as well. But aye, you know, again, it's a lot of times it's getting those right players in, and they stay fit. And you know, Kevin did a really good job for us, to be fair.
Definitely. Just like obviously they call Jim Jeffries the Jet. Like just how kind of harsh could he get? Like just what was the kind of highlights of the time of Jim Jeffries?
Oh, aye. I mean, many a blast for the Jet. And aye, they were definitely a double act, and there was no good cop, bad cop with them. It was, you know, you could see Billy. Sometimes he would come in and he'd be the first one to speak, you know, and he'd be giving maybe an individual pelters, or he'd be giving the group pelters and calling people out, and you're thinking, right, Jim's going to come in now and be a wee bit calmer. But what it actually used to do, it used to get Jim riled up even more, and that's how he would then come in even higher than Billy. No pointing fingers at people, and they were good. You know, they were really good. And I know their reputation is this angry men and everything like that, and they could be angry, of course they could, but they set standards and they put demands in the place. It wasn't anything they weren't doing themselves. They just wanted you to work as hard as you possibly could for that jersey, and you know, put that effort in. You know, and they did have a softer side to them as well, believe it or not.
Brilliant. Obviously, that the season after 09-10, Jim Jeffries leaves. I don't know if he was sacked or resigned. I don't know what happened there. But how did you feel when he left? Were you gutted?
I disappointed, because I'd spent probably the longest time in my career with Jim and Billy, and got to know them. They got to know me, obviously, and arguably they kind of get the best years out of me as such, and particularly that left back position anyway, where you know they were good for me, and you're disappointed. Of course you are, and I don't think, one thing I would say from a player's point of view, often when managers leave or get a sack, if you want to call it, it's because of the players.
Right.
But that was more to down with their relationship with the chairman. To be honest,
right.
The players were with the manager and Billy for sure. Michael Johnston was looking at the club, and he was looking to make savings here and there. Gary Locke had been a player. Jim and Billy, I believe, wanted for Gary to stay on and become a coach. They had offered some concessions to do this and make that happen, thing. And there was a whole fallout between that, I think, with Jim and Billy and the chairman, and various other things that players are probably not privy to, that just deteriorated. And that's when the chairman manager relationship deteriorates the way it does. Then
it's tough to recover.
Inevitable that's going to happen. So it was definitely sad to see that. But you know, Jim and Billy could hold their heads up high for their time at Kilmarnock and serve the club well. And in the main we'd done really well.
Yeah. And Jim, like, when Jim and Billy leave, like Jimmy Calderwood gets a job. Like, how did you feel about Jimmy, and what did he kind of change?
Didn't know him. Obviously played against many of his teams and had a reputation. You know, they go down 1-0 up, then they stick 4 strikers on and all that type of stuff. And he did that with us a few times as well. And his training was good. His training was sort of Dutch background to Jimmy, I think, in regards to views the game and how he sees training to be. So there was lots of passing drills, and I was happy with that. I like a good passing drill, and he wanted tempo, lots of possession exercises as well. You know, so training was good. You know, you were active. There was a kind of tactical element to it as well. He was thorough in his team talks in regards to pre-match games and things like that. So Jimmy was good, but the best thing probably about Jimmy was Jimmy Nicholl for me. Jimmy Nicholl was fantastic. He had Jimmy Nicholl, and he brought Sandy Clark in as well as his assistants. And for me, Jimmy Nicholl was the one.
I've always heard that Jimmy Nicholl's a great coach.
Brilliant at players. You know, just his tempo he would get out you in training. You know, he really was something desperate to do well for. You wanted to impress him in everything you'd done in training, and he was good to talk to. He was a good buffer. Jimmy Calderwood was slightly more distant from you. Sometimes it felt, you know, if Jimmy Calderwood liked you, if you're one of his favourites, then you were okay. But it would be hard to become one of those favourites, if you know what I mean. Whereas Jimmy Nicholl, you could speak to him and ask things and, you know, that type of stuff, and he would give you the information you needed to try and get into the team. So it was the guys come in at a difficult time. They were always on the web. And, you know, Jimmy Calderwood was brought in to keep us up that season. Started well with beat Celtic his first game.
That's right.
The Robbie Keane game. I think we won the next 2 after that as well, perhaps. We were flying. It was a weird season, and I can always remember it. It's obviously the worst season I've had at the club, and it was certainly nerve-wracking. And we would play a game on a Saturday, and we would win, and but immediately checking how's Falkirk got on. And I'm like, I can't believe it. Falkirk went there and they've won, or you know, you're thinking, they just go to hell. You know, that way it was a real worrying time, and invariably it landed. You know, it came to that final game of the season.
You needed a draw in the last day to stay up, and you got it. Like, how relieving was it just to stay up?
Oh, a major relief. If you just take you back one game, we went up to Pittodrie, and it was so neck and neck. And that is an example of what I'm talking about. We went up to Pittodrie and managed to beat Aberdeen 2-1. Big Kev scored the winner. Graham Owens run down the wing and chipped it into the back post for Big Kev to score, and it was such a relief. And then checking the Falkirk score after that, and they had won as well, and you're like, in the name of God, you know, that way. How does that happen? Because we had won that game and they hadn't. They'd have lost it after then at that point. But anyway, into the last game, and it was horrible. I was on the bench as well. So again, Jimmy Calderwood, I'd played the first few games for him, and then I was bumped out of the team, and he never spoke to me. And again, I spoke to Jimmy Nicholl a couple of times about it, and I felt it was unfair and blah blah blah. But you know, it was such a tense situation at those points. We went on a bad run, started to games for 5 or 6 games, you know, and then it came down to the Falkirk game, so I wasn't involved, and that was probably one of the most horrible things about it. That I was sitting on the bench, watching the guys play, and you know, when I was a player watching games, I was never really nervous. But that day, I was really nervous because I knew what it meant. I knew what it meant for myself in regards to I was out of contract that season. I've been at the club for so long. We've been in the top division. You know, since we'd up. I knew that if we get relegated, the youth system, office staff, all these people could have lost their jobs. Do
you think that saved the club?
Sorry? Do you
think that saved the club?
Oh, aye. Undoubtedly. Undoubtedly. Look what happened to Falkirk.
Exactly.
That could have been our pathway. It really could have. You know, I don't know because I don't know all the ins and outs, but that could have easily been us. where Falkirk
Yeah.
just that one game, and it was a horrible game. You know, I remember it was Ryan Flynn you call him?
Yeah.
Centre midfield.
Yeah.
Last 5 minutes inside the box, and he's blazed one over the bar. He should have scored. You know, and that's a sliding doors moment, that one. So, yeah, it's so different for the club. But thankfully we got away with it, and you know, we've got better since then, thankfully.
Yeah. And you obviously signed a new contract, but you get the biggest honour of your career was your testimonial. Like, just talk us through the memories of that.
Yeah, again, that was amazing. You know, the new season, it was such a strange close season as well, because Jimmy Calderwood kept us up. I think Michael Johnson had offered them a contract, but I never really felt as if he actually wanted Jimmy Calderwood to take the job.
Right.
That sounds not strange. I felt as if I heard whispers that he'd offered my contract, but it was money-wise and everything, and who he was allowing him to be his assistant, etc. He was cutting and things like that. So Jimmy was never going to take it.
Yeah.
That probably suited Michael, and you know, we ended up with Mixu. And during the summer, to be fair to Michael, I spoke to him. He said, listen, we're working on a new manager. As soon as we know, we'll give you that information in regards to contracts and stuff. And then he says, right, you know, we're going to keep you on and offer you, you know, another contract. And, you know, I thanked him for that, because at that point he could have been, you know, out the door. But
definitely,
you know, obviously Mick consulted with that and was keen. Hadn't obviously seen me or anything, but was keen for me still to be at the club. So that kind of took care of that. And then obviously the testimonial came around as well. And yeah, it was very humbling, to be honest. Probably the best way to describe it. The testimonial committee that were created, a group of fantastic people, with Dan Clark from the club, who was a sort of club liaison. There was friends of myself that took on roles, like Stuart Murphy, who kind of ran the committee, and Franny and my agent, and Mac, all these other guys became part of the committee, and just did a power of work that whole season, and I couldn't thank them enough. They were amazing, and it was crazy, because you know, I remember going to I think it was my dinner at the Park Hotel. It was organised, and my wife dropped me off, and she was in tears as I was going to the car, and I'm like, what are you crying about? And she was just like, look at all these people just coming to see you. She that, you know, she was overwhelmed, and I was as well. It was great. It was a lovely time, and again, some fantastic memories from that year in regards to the testimonial side of things.
Brilliant. And obviously Mixu comes in, and there's a massive turnaround in players, but one player he brings in was Alexei Eremenko. Like, is he one of the best players you played with?
Aye, undoubtedly. I actually got asked this question at the weekend's game, kind of who was better, Durant or Eremenko, and I couldn't really separate them, you know. But Alexei, eyes in the back of the head, frightening with the ball at his feet, absolutely frightening. Takes it with one or two players under pressure. Oh, he was a real joy to watch. Even whether you're on the pitch or you're watching him for the sidelines, his vision was incredible.
And Mixu obviously does really well. It's a really good start under Mixu, and obviously, you know, when a manager like a club like Kilmarnock, when they do well, as we've seen with Stevie Clark, like they get offers for other teams. But the Finland job comes up for Mixu. Like, were you gutted when he left, and just what were your overall thoughts on Mixu when he came in?
Aye, Mixu was fantastic, and I think I've said it. You know, bringing the style of play that he brought in. You know, and all managers are different, but he was really focused on his playing for the back. Playing through the thirds, or playing up balls into strikers' feet, etc. And he was the best I've ever had about how to show that to the players. It sounds really, you think, how hard can it be, really? You know, you should have a group of intelligent players that can understand these things, but it was just the wee nuggets of information that he gave. And you know, I wouldn't say his training was the greatest, but see, if you were in the team, it was brilliant. because see if you would probably know by Tuesday if we were playing on Saturday, and everything geared towards it's out to the full back. It's goalkeeper, I want you to ping the ball to the full back, I want you to head it inside. You should be able to play a blind pass around the corner because I expect the striker to be in that position. If you're not in that position, I'm not going to shout at the midfielder, I'm going to shout at you, Connor Salmon, for instance. So it was really, really instructive in how we played out. It was brilliant. It was great to play in it. It was so enjoyable. You honestly thought you were playing FIFA. It was, play into here, get on the half turn, thread a pass through inside their fullback for our fullback to be bombing on, and all these different types of things. So it was great fun. And defensively, worked on things as well. He was really keen on. Again, I remember having a conversation with him at one point, because even at home, he wanted us to sit off the play. He says, I just want back four to get 40 yards for the goal. Midfielders, I want you 10 yards in front of them. At that point, 2 number 10s would be like Mehdi Taoul and Eremenko, and Big Salmon would be up front. And he says, that's how I want you to be. He says, Alexei, Mehdi, you guys, see if their fullbacks drive over the halfway line, don't follow them. He says, one of the 3 midfielders will come across and just, shift across. And it was very instructive how he wanted to do it defensively as well. And we just shoot the teams in the counter-attack, because you would pop the ball up to Alexei, or you'd pop it up to Mehdi Taoul, or Rui Miguel played, and you had Big Sam top who was lightning quick. And you had, at that time, you had Ben Gordon and B. Jamie Hamill playing these fullbacks who, again, could pitch really quickly. And we used to use kill teams in the counter-attack, even at home. It was all, obviously, Mixu's and Kenny Shiels' thoughts in the game, and how to go and do that. So it was fantastic. I would say I didn't play that much under Mixu, because, again, he come in, and I played a couple of times at left back, but then he'd had a conversation with me. He says, listen, he says, see, for me, he says, you could go and play midfield, no problem at all. So at that time, I think we had Pasca playing midfield quite often. He had wee Bryso and Craig Bryson and Kelly. So he said, listen, they guys are in there, says, but hopefully you'll get opportunity soon. Get young Ben Gordon, who's got the speed to get up and down as a fullback that you don't really quite have. So he's really nice. Can't argue with that. And so I didn't play that much under him, but the games I did play, I thoroughly enjoyed. And then when Kenny came in, I probably get more game time then. It was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. It was a joy to play in, to be fair, and really did reap rewards. I think we went on a massive run of games where we'd undefeated. I remember us going up to St Mirren January time, it was at Christmas time, and the stand was packed to Kelly fans, and I think we beat them 3-0 as well. And it was just, some of the performances, and Alexei was incredible that season for us.
That's brilliant. So obviously, when Mixu leaves and Kenny comes in, like, were you surprised that Kenny got promoted to the manager's job?
No, I wasn't surprised at all. I think it was a sort of natural progression. Kenny had come in as Mixu's assistant. Mixu was looking for an assistant, and I think the chairman had asked if he had anybody in mind. And I think him and Kenny had spoken a couple of times about the game and their thoughts in the game, and they had similar thoughts on how they wanted the game played. And Kenny came in as Mixu's assistant, and again, as I said, it was a natural progression for Kenny to get that opportunity, and he deserved that opportunity, in fairness.
Brilliant. You finished 5th last season, but you were getting to the 34. How did you feel, like, physically? Did you feel as if you were still fit? Like, your fitness was good?
I felt good. Again, I felt like a new lease of life in that, getting to play in the middle of the park where I hadn't played for a number of years. And don't get me wrong, the very odd time I had played in left midfield for Jim Jeffrey's team or Bobby as well. But the way Kenny and Mixu wanted to play, it was like sort of 3-man midfield they went with most of the time, and I loved it. Absolutely loved playing in there. And fitness-wise, I felt absolutely fine. I felt strong, and I felt good, to be fair, at that point.
In the season after 11-12, another big influx of players. Like, how good was Kenny Shiels? Like, who did he kind of bring in that done well there?
I can't remember if Kenny brought Dean in or not. Paul Heffernan as well, another good player. Big Michael Nelson, great character, good centre back. Gary Harkins, another one, on his day, an absolute match winner. Jeebsy is, great footballer. So Kenny, it was mad at that time. Between Mixu and Kenny, to be fair, the number of players that we came in and tried, I've never seen anything like it. It got to the point, I used to drive one of the cars and I would take the boys up. So by that point, it would be like me, Pascal, Rory McKenzie, a couple of other boys, Jamie Hamill, etc. We'd travel up in a car together, but it actually got to a point where Mixu and Kenny like that, and I would speak to Kirsten Callahan at the time, who was the club secretary, and with that many people in trial that I was driving the minibus up to training, taking 16 players. So I was in the minibus along with another 11 boys or whatever, in this minibus up to training in Glasgow, and I was driving the minibus every day up to training because I was a bit older, I had obviously licenses, allowed to do that, etc.
Yeah.
I was taking all this group of players up to training, and there was sometimes the minibus was so full that Pascal would have to take his car and take a couple of the boys up as well. It was mental, honestly, absolutely mental. I remember we played a game, or we didn't play a game. Kenny had brought that many players up in trial. It was enough to field an 11-a-side game against Partick Thistle at the training ground, plus 3 subs. And it was all trialists.
That's crazy.
Everyone was a trialist. I'm thinking, how hard is that for the guys to play a trial game with other trialists? It's not as if you're dropping between 1 or 2 into a team that know what each other are all about, and then you get so really difficult for them to assess players in that environment, I would presume. But in this, they managed to get 1 or 2 gems out of it. That helped the cause.
I've heard that, I've spoke to Marco. Marco's been on the show. He was playing for Ayr at the time, and he talks about the cup semi-final against Kelly. What was your thoughts going into the game? Like for the Kilmarnock end, like were you confident you would win?
I was confident that we could win, yeah, but really worried, nervous that we wouldn't, if that makes sense. I was confident I was like, we're a better team, we've got the capabilities, we're playing good football. The results in the league could be a wee bit, we'd be brilliant one week and then we would be, horrific the next week. So that's always a worry, but I felt as if we played to our best, then we will win this game.
Yeah.
And on the day, it worked out in the end in that way, but on the day it was tough. It was a nerve-wracking game because in my head I was thinking, we cannot get beat from Ayr United semi-final of a major cup. We just cannot happen. I'll just never live it down. Well, they certainly wouldn't let you forget that. So it was so important, and for me, I'm like, this is the cup final, and that's what I spoke about. I thought, guys, we don't lose this game. It can't happen. Unacceptable. And to be fair, Ayr played into our hands that day because they really, and I get it from Brian Reid's point of view about trying to maybe be a bit more defensive.
Yeah.
But we weren't Brazil. They made us look like Brazil by sitting off the game so much and often no threat. It really was like what Barcelona play against a team where the 2 centre backs are right in their half and all these different things. That's what the game was. It was like big Michael Nelson and was it big Sissoko perhaps, a big who else is centre back would have been. We were in Ayr United's half for pretty much most of the game. Yeah. It was absolutely bonkers, and I've never been so tired for having so much of the ball in a game. I ended up going off at the end of the first period extra time because I'd cramped up in both my calves. Could barely move. And I said to Jimmy, I'm done, I can't move. But it was such a weird game because we absolutely pounded their goal, and they defended so resolutely. Their goalkeeper had a fantastic game that day, and it's never going to happen. So the relief when Dino scored that goal was, it was unbelievable. It was a great result.
Just move on to the final. I just want to touch on it before we get into it. Like, what was the thoughts going into the game? Like, obviously playing against Celtic, like, obviously he's going in as massive underdogs. But what was the thoughts going into the game? Obviously, you'd been there and done it in the cup before. Like, you'd been there in the two cup finals, sorry, and no won them. So what was the thoughts going into this one?
Personally, it was thinking last chance saloon, certainly for me, because in the law of averages, I wasn't going to be still playing when Kelly get to the next major cup final. So for me, it was, again, for that own personal goal of mine, I was just desperate to win. I really was. I was under no illusions that, it was going to be harder than the first cup final we'd played, or in the second cup final we'd managed to play in. This was going to be harder because Celtic were going for the treble.
Aye.
That as well, and everybody was saying they'll win it at a scoosh. So everything was against us in that sense. But again, Kenny being Kenny, we loved a wee quote for the press, etc., and all these things. Was just, he says, listen lads, he told us, listen lads, he says, I'm going to talk up Celtic for fun with the press. He says, but it's a load of shite. He says, we can win the game. He says, I'm telling you. He says, we're going to win it. He says, we've got to believe to achieve, and that was his man, believe to achieve. That was, I heard it a million times over that game. He says, but I'm going to speak to the press. I'm going to be talking about Celtic going for the treble, how much they deserve it, how much, blah, blah, all this type of things. And that's what he done. He spoke about Celtic and how good they were and blah, blah, blah. But secretly to us, he's saying, we'll do this. And, preparation for that game was still fair.
And you get into the game, obviously, and I would say, I watched the game back the other day just in preparation for this, but both teams had big chances to win it. Like, I would say Celtic probably had big chances, so did Kilmarnock. But the guy that scores, did you ever think he would be the hero?
Aye, mad big DVT. Lovely big guy, to be fair. Again, enjoyed his time over here. And you just don't know, and that's sort of a striker's role, wasn't it? Averages tell you it's probably going to be a striker that will become a hero for you that day. And he was just in the right place at the right time. Unfortunately for us. So, it was.
What were your thoughts in the game? What were your kind of thoughts during the game? Like, was it? Just talk us through that.
First 30 seconds, I was thinking about trying to throttle Big Sissoko, but it was too big for me. So I don't know if you remember, but basically the kick-off, Big Momo tried to pass the ball to the left across the big net, and Gary Hooper cut it out.
That's right, I remember that.
And Cammy came out and made the first of his many wonder saves that day. So at that point I was ready to throttle Big Momo, because I'd spoken to him before the game about being switched on, because the big man was so laid back. He used to drink Red Bull before a game. He used to have a couple of cans of Red Bull to wake himself up. And then the physio would go mental with him. He said, you shouldn't be drinking that. He says, that'll give you cramp, because it's got so much caffeine in it as well. And that's invariably what I think to Momo that day. He camped up.
That's right.
Quite off, but I could have killed him in that first 30 seconds. But then again, we just played our way into the game. And I think you're spot on. Celtic had some really good chances. Cammy had some unbelievable saves. One he had, header was world class. It really was. But we had chances. We definitely did. And as longer the game goes on, it's a knife edge. If Celtic score the first goal, they probably go on and win 2 or 3-0. But we held on, created chances. We were always a threat that game. And we got Lady Luck on our side that day for sure, that managed to take us over the edge and finally lift the trophy.
Just 2 players I want to touch on. Also, I want to touch on Van Turnhout, just how he's scoring that goal. But Cammy Bell, I don't think he gets enough credit for how good a goalkeeper he was. But that day was unbelievable. Just his many saves he made. It was unbelievable that day. I
think it's fair to say, if you speak to any Kilmarnock fan about Cammy Bell, then they'll tell you he's a hero. Cammy was a brilliant goalie. For me, he was probably my time at Kelly was I'd probably just make him second place behind Big Gordon Marshall. But I don't think that a slight on him. And just Marsh, for me, because I was younger coming through with Marsh, I kind of looked up to him, and he was a great mentor when I was coming through. But Cammy, what a goalkeeper!
Yeah.
What a goalkeeper. Size and stature, he's not the biggest, but his spring and his bravery, is incredible. And again, Cammy has had a great career, still playing now, obviously.
Yeah.
That day was the single best performance I've been involved in with a goalkeeper on the pitch with me.
Yeah, it was outstanding. But just like that, Van Tornhout scores the winning goal in the full-time whistle goes. Just talk us through how you felt. Just talk us through when the goal went in, for the goal went into the full-time whistle, just what was going through your head.
When the goal went in, actually I dropped to my knees. When Dieter scored the goal, I dropped on my knees for a couple of seconds. I could feel the tears welling up in my eyes, and then obviously went and kind of joined in the celebrations. And I remember down in the corner, Dino's like, "We don't stop playing, we don't stop," and I'm like, Dino, F that. I say, everyone back behind the ball and we'll just defend. So 7 minutes to defend. I'm not going anywhere. Anytime the ball comes to me, I'm just booting it. It was kind of one of these things. It was the longest time ever. As I say, Momo ended up going off at that point as well, and brought big Crocker on, the big man, and he came on to centre back. And I think at that time, God, that's worrying, making a centre back change. Normally there's another centre back on, but you're making a change like for like almost. So you're a wee bit worried, they don't get up to the speed of the game. But we got away with it, and we ended up. Anthony Stokes was through and goal at one point.
Yeah, that's right.
If you ask me to this day, I'm still not sure if it's a penalty or not. Who knows? But thankfully Billy Collins didn't give that one. That was unfortunate in that sense. And when the full time whistle goes again, it's just it was just amazing. It really was. That full time whistle, just to finally achieve a young boy from New Farm who's always supported the club, finally get that chance to lift a trophy for the club, knowing how much it means to everybody at the club as well as obviously the fans that are out there. It was a real special moment, being able to do that. And it was, as time went by at the end of the whistle, obviously after 10 minutes, 15 minutes or so, we realised that Liam Kelly's father had taken the worst, and it certainly tempered things for us because we weren't sure what had happened, and it was heartbreaking for Liam. But you can't take away that feeling right at the final whistle and the celebrations with the fans for those short space of time. There was fans in the crowd that I knew for many years, and get to see their faces. You can't imagine how nice that feels to think, God, that's us that's put that smile on their face. It's a great feeling.
And there's nothing like, was that the pinnacle of your career, like that will never be topped or ever?
No, I don't think so. So I think it's like, again, it's hard to say it's the only cup of one for the team. With the team. So maybe a player who's won, Scott Brown, for instance, he might say the last one's the best feeling. But I would suspect that maybe the first time that you do it is, it's probably the greatest feeling when you lift that cup. And it was definitely the pinnacle for myself, for the club, and at that time, definitely peak.
Brilliant. Obviously, I just want to touch on after that, you extend your contract for another season. Did you know that would be your last season with the club?
I didn't know. Again, I signed another year's contract. Again, I was at 34, 35, so that was totally understandable. At that point, I still felt as if I was, fitness-wise, I was going to be fine. We did, at that point, we were doing university tests, the VO2 max test and running test. Out of all the players, I was in the top 8 players in regards to those fitness levels that were required, so I didn't have any worries about that. But then I had a niggling knee injury, at the start of the season, right at the start, and which required surgery. And undoubtedly, for me, that's what probably cost me leaving Kilmarnock at that time, in my opinion, was I didn't do a pre-season. I was out for about 14 weeks. I had to get something to do with my patella, and I had to get a bit shaved off my patella because it was rubbing against the side and what have you. So I had to get that fixed, and I was out for 14 weeks, didn't do a pre-season, came back, and I just didn't get up to speed in regards to the fitness levels that was running. And it doesn't matter how much running that you do with the physio, missing pre-season for me is a huge, it really was. And I just didn't get up to speed after that. I spoke to Kenny obviously that season a lot, particularly near the end, and he says, listen, I still feel you've still got a part to play. I know you've not played much this season, but for me, you've still got a part to play. He says, next season, I want you still here. He says, I want to sign you as a player, but also want to bring you on board in the coaching side of things.
Yeah.
He says, register as a player, you'll do the pre-season, everything else like that. With a view that you'll come in and help Jimmy and I in the kind of coaching side of things. And, that was sort of music to my ears, to be honest, because that was obviously thinking about that when I was around 29, 30, about, what happens next.
Yeah.
But then I could sort of quickly see near the end of the season that probably Kenny's time was coming to an end. Kenny was massive on the youth side of things, and we were still going for the top six. But what he was kind of wanting to do, he was wanting to bleed some of the younger boys into the team.
Yeah.
Even though we were fighting for that top six position, he was wanting to go for it obviously and get it because he knew what it meant to the club and what have you. But he was also conscious that he wanted. We had young Robbie Muirhead, we had Greg Kilty. I think Robbie was slightly older. I think Greg was 16 at the time, and he was in training with him. And I remember having a conversation with him, and he says, I want to get these boys some game time before the end of the season. He says, because I want them for next season to be part of the first team squad, and I want to build a team behind the team. Yeah. Almost blending in these young players, and he was really big on that. But ultimately, it probably that, and he had a few run-ins with the Scottish FA disciplinary committee, etc., for maybe some comments he'd made that I don't know if Michael just kind of get fed up with it all eventually, and unfortunately he lost his job. So I felt it was certainly a shame in that sense, because I could see what he was trying to do with the young players. And if you're ahead of the academy and you've got these young players who are all desperate to get involved in the first team, that's music to your ears when a manager's
Definitely.
So that was a kind of tough one, but we'll never know what would have happened. That's Kenny get the sack, and then I was not required after that. So that's football, that's life. It was hard because even till up to the end of the season, I was still hopeful I would be there the next year. So unfortunately, get to say a real sort of farewell to the fans, but that's a kind of small thing anyway. It would have been nice, but hey ho.
Obviously, you played your last game against St Mirren, but that was the last game in a 14-year spell at Kilmarnock. Just sum it up, just what it was like, just playing for the club you loved.
It was a privilege. It really was. I loved. I always remember going to all the stadiums to watch the first team players play. Up at Brecon, up at Morton, all these places, and just it's something that I wanted to do. So to get that opportunity for so long was a real privilege.
Brilliant, tremendous. Obviously, after that though, you leave Kilmarnock and you got offered. Was it Oldham that offered you a job? Was it to be a player coach?
Yeah, Lee Johnson. Lee Johnson, who had played with Kelly. Jono had been given got the Oldham job, and he'd phoned me up, and he knew I was leaving Kilmarnock, and he just says, fancy you coming in. Says again, I'll register as a player. He says, but I want to bring you in as a coach, because again, Lee and I used to talk quite a bit at training about the game and how we've seen it played, and I would go out with him in the afternoon sometimes, and we would take some of the young young lads out, like Rory McKenzie out a couple of times, and Willie Grow and these boys who we do a wee bit with. Says, want you to come down and we'll get a chat. So I've been down and seen him, and it was just a difficult time, family time at that point. My wife had just kind of started a new business, so there was no way that we were moving. Stock and barrel. It was myself, her, and my young boy at that point. So we were always going to be staying in Kelly. Thoughts were that I would maybe go down there and we would do a bit of commuting. I would do some commuting, but again, I went down there, spoke to Jono, met the chairman, and for a club side, they were great. Jono was great, and my heart was telling me to take it, because I was thinking I'll probably not get another opportunity to get into the coaching side of the game, because you're quickly forgotten in the professional game. But I was also thinking in my head, I'm thinking, if I go down here and I'm down here most of the week and I'm not seeing my family, I'm just not going to be able to do it. I wouldn't be fully focused on the job. I needed my family with me, and it just wasn't going to be possible. So unfortunately, I turned it down because it just wasn't right for us as a family, and do I regret it sometimes, in the sense that I remember obviously John went on to manage Barnsley, and then he was taking Bristol City, and then I'm watching the telly and he's playing Liverpool at Anfield, and Liverpool's my other team, and I'm thinking, oh yeah, bandit, I could have dug out now while we're playing Liverpool, but that's life, and I don't really regret it, but it's one of those sliding door moments of what might have been. And there's not to say I could have went to Oldham, because Lee had left Oldham, and I don't actually think he took any of his assistants with him. He got a new assistant when he went to Barnsley. So again, there's no saying it would have taken me with him anyway. So again, no real regrets. It's just you just got to move on.
You do move on, though. You go to Airdrie. Like, who signed you, and like what was the kind of reason for going there? Like, how did that come about?
It was Jimmy Boyle, because obviously in the summer there, I was sitting thinking, right, what am I going to do? I had, while I was still playing, I had went and done my B licence and my A licence, so I had completed them. So in a football sense, I was fairly qualified. But I was also thinking, God, what am I going to do? Where am I going to get a job? Could I still play? I felt, yes, I could still play. I was unsure if I wanted to be honest though. But then I'd spoke to Big Colin Stewart, actually, who was at Airdrie, and he just spoke to the gaffer, and he's looking for a fullback, he's looking for a left back. Would you fancy coming up to Airdrie, kind of thing? I says, well, tell me to give me a phone, and I spoke to him. And just about the same time, a friend was going to be leaving his post at the Scottish FA, and I spoke to him. Listen, I'm leaving my job. He says, this job I'm leaving would actually suit you down to the ground. I says, all right, okay, and I met him and spoke about what the job was going to be. I thought, right, okay, I'll keep an eye on that and wait for it to see if it, materialises, that job. So I spoke to Jimmy Boyle on the phone, and he says, listen, need an experienced player to come in, a lot of young boys, etc. So I went up to Airdrie. It was good. Jimmy was brilliant. He was right. There was a lot of young boys there, but some of them there were some decent young boys, and Big Martin Hardy was there time as well. So at least I had somebody older than me. As I say, Big Colin Stewart was there as well. So again, a good bunch of players. A lot of young ones there. There was 16, 17 that were playing in the first team and just probably needed a wee bit of help. So when I spoke to Jimmy, I'd said, listen, happy to come in and play. But what I will say, I said, I don't want to sign a contract for a year or something, and then I says, because there is a job coming up with the Scottish FA, I'm going to apply for it. I'm not saying I'm going to get it, but I'm going to apply for it. And if I do get it, it means I can play football at professional level. And he says, listen, Gary, that's fine. He says, listen, just come, we'll sign you in a contract. If you get a job, we'll just wrap it up, and everything will be hunky. So that's what I ended up doing. I ended up playing 5 or 6 games, and in the meantime, I'd applied for the job and luckily got the role. So then, left the professional game from there.
And do you, like, obviously when you hang up the boots, is it obviously, like not many players have the option of having a job after that. Like how big was that? Like having that kind of other option for you?
Aye, it was massive. It was, you know, I wouldn't have quit playing if I hadn't got another job. As I said, I felt fitness-wise that I could have kept on playing longer.
Yeah.
I was never super quick, so I didn't have really any pace to lose. And I always kind of looked after myself as best as I could, so I wasn't carrying excess weight or all these things. It was as if I could have played on from a physical point of view. But I think when an opportunity comes up to go into a full-time post, knowing how precarious football is as a job as well, then, you know, it's just something I couldn't say no to. And in my head, I think I've got to do this. I've got to do this for myself and my family.
Just how, as well as that, like what does your kind of job involve? Like how do you kind of think about football, like at grassroots level now to when you were kind of starting out playing football?
Obviously, starting out football, you're oblivious to, you know, what coaches doing, what they are, etc. But now you're back in from the other side. The grassroots game is just so vital. It's absolutely vital. And one thing that, you know, all the things with COVID has taught me is how important football is in people's lives.
Definitely.
You know, it's the physical and the mental well-being, but it's all the social side of it. It's the routine of it that people crave as well. You know, people are used to going and watching games on a Saturday in a stadium, or they're used to going and watching their son or daughter play for the local grassroots team, and that's what, you know, COVID certainly taught me that.
Aye, definitely.
So many good people working in the grassroots game, and you know, if we don't have them, if we don't have the thousands and thousands of volunteers who, you know, the mums, the dads, the grandpas, grandparents, you know, the uncles, etc., give up their time to go and take a wee girls' team or a wee boys' team, then you don't end up with your superstars. You don't end up with Andy Robertson or an Aaron Cuthbert or these people.
Definitely.
It's a grassroots team. It's a feeder, obviously, as everybody knows, and so many good people, you know, and local community clubs now are doing more than just giving kids football. You know, they're feeding the people, you know, the needy, and, you know, they're doing lots of social things that are massively important to our society. So yeah, you can't underestimate, and that's the value of football to me, is it keep communities and people together for a common cause.
Brilliant. It's great to hear that. It's amazing. Are you all right, close with some quick fire questions?
Yeah, sure. Aye.
Brilliant. Out of your whole career, who would you say was the best player you ever played with?
As it's kind of alluded to earlier, I get asked about Durant and Eremenko earlier on, and I'll come to them in a minute. You know, other guys, you know, Nazy, I need to mention Nazy and Boydie. Boydie's the best goal scorer I've ever shared a pitch with. Nazy was an unbelievable player as well, absolutely fantastic. Another one that I've not actually mentioned, most skillful one, would be Mehdi Taoul. If you remember Mehdi, played with us well, and I hear actually Gerard talk a lot about Kent and guys like that talking about their numbers, their stats, numbers of goals, numbers of assists, and how they need to get that up. And I'd probably say that about Mehdi. He's by far the most skillful player I've been in the pitch with. Some of the things he could do with the ball, you're just like, how has he done that? That is just, actually can't he really do that? It's ridiculous. He was so skillful. But probably where his game fell down was probably his stats at times. He was, you know, that final goal, etc. Kind of thing. But what a player he was. But Eremenko and Durant, again, I've just spoke about, just two amazing players. Eremenko, was just vision, creativity, second to none. Durant, he ran the game for a wee bit deeper, and, you know, set the pace of games. And I would probably, if you ask me who would I want to play in a team with ever again, I would probably just edge Ian Durant, purely because probably the personal relationship I had with him. Again, as a young boy coming through, he was brilliant to listen to and speak to him and learn things from. Eremenko, great guy, obviously didn't have the same relate to him. So
yeah.
from a personal point of view, I wouldn't separate them as players, but just from a personal point of view, I would side with Ian Durant.
Brilliant. Best player you played against?
Again, we mentioned a lot of the Rangers and Celtic players previously, haven't we? That definitely come in that. You've got to mention, you know, on the same pitch as Samuel Larsson.
Yeah.
He will go down as certainly one of Scottish football's ever greatest players that's played in our game and worldwide as well. So he was amazing. Probably directly playing against Aidan McGeady was tough.
Was it?
Really tough opponent because he was a lot of players, wide players, they can be a wee bit more predictable. They've just got raw pace, but they're strong right-footed, so they're not so good in their left. So you could try and combat that by getting them onto their left, etc. But Aidan McGeady, he wasn't lightning quick, but he was quick, and he could either dribble, he could go right or he could go left, and he was comfortable in both feet. So he was so hard to read at times.
Yeah.
I certainly get twisted and turned with many a player over the years, but he was probably kind of toughest one, to be fair. And another one I speak about to one of my friends was Nakamura.
Mm-hmm.
Again, he's the type of player who he actually never beat you. He never dropped a shoulder on me. He just used to pass the ball by you, or he would go and drift into the middle of the pitch. I've often said, you know, playing against him, you think you've had a good game because he's not went past you once, and then at the end of the game, you've lost the game 3-0 and he scored 2 and set up the other one because he drifts into other positions. But I probably Aidan McGeady is a direct opponent.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Favourite away ground?
Good mention for Tynecastle. I think
a lot of folks say that.
Many boys will like that, but for me it'd probably be Ibrox.
Mm-hmm.
Just first game ever played there, and just the memory of that a full packed Ibrox. It's all enclosed as well. There's no gap, and it was like loud, very loud, brilliant.
Favourite film or TV show?
Films. Lots of different films. So many films over the years. Shawshank Redemption, all those types of films that you love, obviously. I like Christopher Nolan films.
Mm-hmm.
So he's the guy who did Batman trilogy.
Yeah.
He did Inception, Interstellar. I like him as a director, so I always like his films because I don't know what it is. It's like a soundtrack mixed with the stories and everything I like. But they types of films, it's probably more TV show that I love the most over the last few years, and certainly Gomorrah.
Right, okay.
I don't know if you
I've
ever watched
I've heard it.
An Italian gangster TV series. It's brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
That's the TV series I've watched. And there's a film connected to that just came out actually a few months back called Immortale, I think it is.
Right.
I think it means immortal. So the immortal in Italian it means. I love Gomorrah.
Brilliant. Best friend in football?
Most of my best friends I would say are outside of football, in fairness, but I've got plenty of good friends and good pals in the game that I keep in touch with. Keep in touch with Paul Di Giacomo quite often. I see Hoodie all the time. Coaching at the club. I keep in touch with Fou as well, particularly now he's back at the club, and those guys a lot. And I'll send speaking text to guys now and again like Boydie or Maisie and Manuel. Keep in touch with him. So loads of the guys over the years, because obviously I've been at the club that long that you get to know players a lot. Sometimes I forget that. I speak to like Tim Clancy, for instance, back and forth, the manager over at Drogheda in Ireland, who's won the league actually. I speak back and forth to him. Keep in touch with a boy called Sean Hesse.
Right.
Used to play years ago. Down in Liverpool, what a boy he was. He was some boy. So I kind of keep in touch with a lot of guys over the years, but I'm no one for phoning guys up once a week and catching up in that fashion. It's just the weird thing about, I might not have seen Manuel for 5 years, but if I bumped into him in the street with two, he could go for a coffee and we could sit and talk for hours, you know, that type of. That's the way it is with a lot of guys.
Brilliant. Last question, best manager you played under?
All of the managers were good, I've got to say that. But, you know, very few, likes of Jim and Bobby and Kenny were all fantastic at different stages of my career. And I think I was going to say earlier, probably the one that he enjoyed what he was trying to do in the style and learned the kind of tactics and everything around the game was probably Mixu, to be fair.
Right.
Even though he was there that short time, I said that just how he wanted to play the game at that point was just, it was so enjoyable, so enjoyable playing that style of football. And I really enjoyed him. But I did, every manager that I've played under, I had a lot of respect for. And definitely influenced my career for sure.
Brilliant. Gary, it's been an absolute pleasure to be on the show, mate. Thanks very much for doing that. I really appreciate it. It's been brilliant to talk to you. Thanks very much, mate. Cheers.
No worries. Cheers, bye-bye.